بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومعوانا وملجأنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد نورك ساري والمددك جاري واجمعني به في كل أطواري وعلى آله وصحبه يا نور. Alhamdulillah. We're continuing on in this book. We're on page 29. Page 29 for those who are following in the Arabic. وقال رضي الله عنه ونفعنا به. This is now a section on التناجي بين الناس وما يترتب عليه. So tanaji can mean like private conversations, or like conversations we have maybe away from the public eye. It can also mean the exchange of ideas. It can mean secrets that are exchanged. So it has a variety of different meanings. Essentially, what we're looking at here is our conversations in private, we can say. And these conversations that we have in private sort of reveal our state and reveal who we really are in that sense. This is why the ulama of spirituality, the ulama of the Ahlul Qulub, as they call them, the people who deal with matters of the heart, and we look at issues of spirituality, they say that sidq, sincerity or truthfulness, to be truthful, or in our language we can say to be real with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is really what we lack in the ummah, isn't it? People who are just real. This is why a lot of them, a lot of the ulama now, they say that they prefer to spend time with the laity, to spend time with normal people who are truthful, than to spend time with like false scholars or fake scholars or fake so-called students of knowledge. I mean, we had this in the time of Imam Ghazali. This was Imam Ghazali's great gripe. This was his great issue. The people around him, the scholars around him, there was a veiled hypocrisy there. They were pretending to be pious, and they were quoting all these ayat and hadith, but their reality was rotten. And eventually, this was his initial guy. Eventually, he recognized that within his own self. He said, within my own soul, I can see arrogance. Within my own soul, I can see insincerity. So that's why he now went on a journey to establish sidq. He went on a journey to establish sincerity and truthfulness within his heart. So what is this truthfulness? The minimum level of truthfulness is what? Is that our private and our public is the same. This is the minimum, that at least, that the way we behave public in front of people is the same as we behave privately amongst our family, our friends, our intimate people, people who we're close with. At the very least, this is why they say that the person of spirituality is the one who, if he can go out into the marketplace, he can go out in public in front of people, and all of his actions could be displayed on a plate. Yeah, like openly for everybody to see, and he would have no problem with that. That would be completely fine. He would be happy with that. Somebody who's happy with that is a person who's now approaching towards sidq, the minimum levels of sidq. Yeah, the minimum levels of what we call sincerity for Allah, sincerity for God. So the minimum level, like we're saying, is that's the same. And also that what's going on inside you, your thoughts and your internal reality, is the same as your outer appearance. And what's coming out, the kind of things that you're talking about, etc., are the same as what's going on within. Beyond that, that's just minimum level. Beyond that is that your inward is greater. Your private conversations are greater. That what you're actually showing to the world is not what you are. Your reality is much greater than that. This is what we call sidq. This is what we call truthfulness. And this is why we say the greatest preventative, the greatest cure for riyah, yeah, the greatest way to stop yourself from being insincere, the greatest way to prevent showing off, ostentation, yeah, displaying your deeds before people, doing things for others and not Allah. What's the greatest way to prevent that? The greatest way to prevent that is to hide your good deeds, just like you hide your bad deeds. Hide, seek, have effort, strive, make an effort to hide your good deeds, just like you hide your sins, because we all hide our sins. We all do our very best to make sure that people, whether it's our next door neighbor, whether it's our family members, whoever it might be, extended family, parents, we go to lengths to make sure they don't find out about our misdemeanors. But yeah, when it comes to our good deeds, we don't go to that kind of struggle. So the point is, for your good actions, you do everything that you possibly can to conceal. Everything that you possibly can. This is the greatest way of attaining sincerity. And this is the greatest way. So we have this, so he mentions this, that the Naji, these private conversations, really, they reveal all. And these private conversations, to overcome them, yeah, to become a person of sidq, such that your private conversations are better than your public conversations, it takes great effort. It really does. It takes great struggle. And we look at the ulama, the kibar, the great ulama. What are they saying? Imam Ibn Ali Jamra, people like this from Egypt, Anwar, these great imams. He said for 20 years, I struggled with my intention. And he said, there was no greater struggle. There was nothing in my life that was harder than purifying my intention, making it sincere for God, remaining focused upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout all of my actions and throughout all of my deeds. He said that was the greatest challenge I had in my life. This is Imam Ibn Ali Jamra. It's not like us, or it's not like one of the laity of the Muslims. This is from the elite of the elite, one of the greatest imams that we've had. And he's telling you that the greatest struggle he had in his life, full stop, was maintaining intention. So maintaining sincerity is a great thing, and it requires to give a lot. You know, like yesterday, we had the Dalal al-Khairat gathering yesterday, alhamdulillah, and Fakir afterwards he spoke about this concept of looking at the Sahaba as examples. And really, I mean, you look at them, and you know, the Fakir can talk about them and we can talk about them, but really it's like, subhanAllah, you almost feel ashamed to even talk about these kind of people. Are you talking about Sayyidina Musa bin Umair, Anas bin Nadhr, people like that, Talha, yeah, the living martyr. You're talking about these supreme beings. And what did they give up to attain sincerity? What did they give up to have qurb, have closeness to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Such that, I mean, the testimony of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wajabat Jannah ala Talha. Jannah has become obligatory upon Talha. And or Sayyidina Musa bin Umair, min al-mu'minina rijal, that he sees the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after Sayyidina Musa bin Umair, who gives his entire life. Yeah, look at his life before and after Islam. Before Islam, he's a prince. He's saying he doesn't ever wear the same item of clothing twice. He's very, very, very wealthy. And he's living a life of extreme comfort and ease. They said when he died, they didn't have enough cloth to cover his body. He didn't have enough just to be able to wrap his blessed body. So this is the man, they said, the Prophet ﷺ sends him to Medina Munawwara. And he sends him for 11 months. That's it. In 11 months, virtually the entire Medina Munawwara becomes Muslim. Virtually the entire city becomes Muslim through this caller. This is sidq of the highest nature, sincerity and ikhlas. They all become Muslim in 11 months, and then the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam enters. He is the gateway. He is the one who opens Medina Munawwara for the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then, as if that's not enough, then people see him in the masajid of and in the mosques of Allah and the mosque of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba, when they see him, they begin to weep when they look at his state, how emaciated he is, how completely malnourished he is, because he's abandoned everything from the dunya just to become a person who is of sincerity. He strives and he gives up everything to attain a modicum of sincerity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of true sidq, of truly annihilating the nafs. Yeah, and then as if that's not enough, then he continues on and and then he ends up in Uhud. And then in Uhud, he gives his life witnessing the truth. He gives his life witnessing the truth. And as we know, the famous narration that's mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ that he's given Sayyidina Musa bin Umair the battle standard, he's given him the banner. He's carrying the banner of the Prophet ﷺ into Uhud. And then the Prophet ﷺ, towards the end of the battle, he's walking through and he's seeking. Prophet ﷺ is heavily injured himself at this stage. He's walking through, his blessed cheeks been lacerated. Yeah, he's been struck a blow upon his shoulder with a sword. Yeah, that would have killed most, if not anybody else. Yeah, he's going through, and then he's looking for Musa bin Umair, and then he sees somebody, and this is a man who represents Musa. So he says to him, "Assalamu alaikum ya Musa," and he says, "I'm not Musa. I'm not Musa." In other words, this is an angel who's taken on the form of Sayyidina Musa bin Umair. It's an angel who's taken on his form, and that's when Idrak, the Prophet ﷺ, Allah, maybe he already knew, because this is the Rasul, and now he knows that Sayyidina Musa bin Umair has died. But the journey doesn't end, it doesn't stop there, because the Prophet ﷺ, he has concern, and he has love and mercy for us. 1,400 years afterwards, he has concern and mercy. He has more concern and mercy for us than our own parents and our own mothers could ever have. The love and the concern of the Prophet ﷺ, harisun alaykum bil mu'minin. The concern that he has is beyond comprehension. So what then about his companions? What then about the last of Sayyidina Musa bin Umair? What kind of love and concern? So he seeks him. He goes into the battlefield and he seeks. After the battle, he goes through and he seeks and he seeks and he seeks until he can find the blessed body of Sayyidina Musa bin Umair, a man of Sidq, a man who gave up everything for the religion, and he sees him. And that's when he utters the immortal word. He says, "Min al-mu'minina rijal," from the believers are men, sadaqu ma hadullah alayh, that they were truthful to the covenant, the contract, the promise that they made Allah. That promise that they made in a world that's gone, in the primordial realm, when they testified to the oneness and the lordship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of God Almighty himself. When they testified to that, he remained true to that contract. These are the people of Sidq. People like that. And who are we to even speak about them in reality? What do we know about their world? And what do they know about our world? Nothing. So therefore, the point is that inshallah, we hope to try to cling on to their coattails and to cling on to their examples, and inshallah to become transformed just like they were transformed. But it requires effort. That's why spiritual illumination requires that you give up a lot. It requires that you give up. This is why, like Imam Ghazali, they talk about Imam Ghazali attaining spiritual illumination. How did he attain spiritual illumination? He gave up everything around him. He became annihilated to the world around him. And then he attained spiritual illumination. So this is what we're talking about. Sidq is not, and we live in an age now, it's a wondrous age. It really is a very, very strange age. You're living in an age where people are working hard. Yeah, I mean, just think about this for a minute. People are working very, very hard to make themselves more anxious, to make themselves more depressed, to make themselves more worried, to make themselves more unhappy. They are working to become more unhappy. Because this is what the stats are telling us. Look at the super rich in London. Like our blessed teacher, Sheikh Abdul Murad, talks about the super rich in London. They've got more anxiety, depression than anyone else. Or the person who works, he strives 5, 10 years, long hours, 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day in the office, so he can buy a car, like a whatever it might be. And then that car gives him anxiety because he's thinking, oh, is it safe? Where I left it, is someone going to damage it? Is someone going to take it? What if it does get down? How am I going to replace the wheel? How am I going to replace the wind mirror when it's going to cost me 10,000 because the car costs 50,000 or whatever it might be? Yes, we'll be working. People are working hard to be more depressed and more unhappy. Like they talk about the CEOs now. The CEOs, they sleep 2 hours in a 24-hour period. It's 2 hours, that's all they sleep, in pursuit of the profane, in pursuit of something that's actually going to make you feel worse. It's ajab, it's ajib, really. I mean, maybe I'm dumb. Maybe someone needs to explain it to me because I just can't understand. Why would you work to be more unhappy? Why would you work? Why would you spend effort in reveling in other people's dunya? Now, this is what Imam Malik, look at Imam Malik, a man of idrak, of extreme intelligence, in every way, intellectual and certainly spiritual. A man who at the age of 17 was giving fatwa, and he said he didn't give fatwa until 70 of the great ulama of Madinah Munawwara gave him permission to do so. Imam Malik, someone comes to him with a question. Who are the worst of people? Like, who are the worst of people? And he said the worst of people are people who have certain characteristics. This is not about individuals, it's characteristics that we have that we need to shed ourselves of. He said the quality of the worst of people are those who lose their akhirah. They lose the next life because of their dunya. In other words, their worldly existence distracts them from the next realm. Instead of bringing them closer to God, instead of increasing them, it distracts them. So he said, this is the lowest quality you can have, is to be somebody who loses the next life because of this life. So then he says, this man who is obviously an intelligent man, he asked him, he says, who's worse than them? Who's the lowest of the low then? If you say that's bad, that quality, what's the worst possible quality a human being can have then? And look at the answer of Imam Malik, a man of extreme intelligence. He says, the worst, there's people, yeah, there is, you're right. The lowest of the worst quality you can have is to lose your akhirah, to lose the next life, to lose qurb to Allah, to lose closeness to the Prophet ﷺ himself, to lose that because of other people's dunya, other people's success. This is what's happening now. Like, we have TV programs. How many? I haven't watched TV. I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago. That I used to see programs on TV. I don't know what's happening now, where they're showing you somebody's house. So you spend an hour of your life, of your precious life, watching a program that shows you someone else's house and how nicely they're living. MashaAllah, may Allah give them more. Yeah, and may Allah allow them to. I mean, it's not our concern. Okay, but why are you watching? Oh, he's got a really nice pool. Oh, he's got this wonderful magic staircase, or whatever he's got. He's got 10 cars in his garage. So people are watching this, and then they're missing Maghrib Salah, or they're just not doing anything positive at all. They're watching other people's dunya. People are reveling the success of another, like a footballer. Yeah, like he's reveling in his, he's done it, mashallah, all right? So he just signed a £100 million contract with Nike. He just won the World Cup. Whatever he's done, he's done. Great for him. You're going to waste hours. I'm not talking about just watching football. I'm talking about people who waste hours. This is their whole life, their devotion. The devotion that we should have to the Rasul, it goes into this. Yeah, whereas the person who would desire sidq is not that kind of a person. Is a different kind of a person. His orientation is different, and his desires and what he seeks is very, very different. Yeah, and it demands that uprooting. It really does demand that. It demands that you become a person, like Imam Haddad said. He said, strive, put in effort, strive to ensure your heart is severed from everything other than Allah. Your heart is completely disconnected from everything other than Allah. When you do that, then you've achieved sidq. Then your relationships with people become true. Then you become a person, a force of goodness within the world. Yeah, inshallah, we're asking for tawfiq. So he's talking about the private conversation. So he quotes here from the Quran. He says, يقول الله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا تناجيتم فلا تتناجوا بالإثم والعدوان ومعصية الرسول وتناجوا بالبر والتقوى واتقوا الله الذي إليه تحشرون. So he's saying that when we're having our private conversations, these aren't conversations of sin and transgression. Rather, these are conversations when we're having that based on bir and taqwa, on righteousness and taqwa. What's taqwa? Taqwa is that consciousness of God. Yeah, like we said, taqwa, we mentioned previously, is the most important quality. If you just want to understand Islam in a nutshell, so to speak, you want to understand what is Islam? Islam is taqwa. Islam is about gaining taqwa, yeah, which is consciousness of Allah. They say taqwa is to protect yourself from divine punishment or from divine disappointment, we could say. Yeah, to protect yourself through fulfilling God's commands and through staying away from what he has prohibited. This is taqwa. Yeah, it's mentioned 99 times in the Quran because it's the most important concept. And the benefits, like Imam al-Ghazali, he brings 11 benefits of taqwa. And if you look at those benefits, really he's summarizing the whole religion. He's talking about things like islah of your actions. Yeah, if you want your actions to be accepted and rectified, if you want to be forgiven by Allah, if you want Allah's support, yeah, if you want your actions to be accepted, إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah only accepts from the people of taqwa. If you want nusra, you want victory and success in your life. If you want ghufran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم. Yeah, if you want success, whatever it might be, if you want mahabba, إن الله يحب المتقين, you want the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want his protection, his hirasa for the muttaqeen. You want bishara, glad tidings of Jannah, it's for the muttaqeen. You want khulud, you want permanent happiness, it's for the muttaqeen. You want ikram, ennoblement. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Yeah, that indeed the most noble of you, the most lofty, the greatest of you in the sight of Allah are the most pious amongst you. That's the criterion for deciding success in terms of human failure and success is taqwa. Yeah, so the whole of the affair is in taqwa, and therefore to develop taqwa is an essential thing. And I recommend all of us, inshallah, to obviously commit to that and to, I mean, we're covering some of these in the evening lesson, but really, inshallah, people who, if they haven't, they should be undergoing courses in spirituality to learn what taqwa is and how they can operationalize that within their lives. And if they've done that, then we should be busy in making an operation within our lives. Yeah, to become people of taqwa, inshallah ta'ala. Tawfiq. So what yeah, have taqwa of Allah, have consciousness of Allah upon whom, the one who you're gonna be gathered unto him. ويتربى على تناجي بالإثم والعدوان انتشار الشرور في الناس ولا تناجي بالبر والتقوى انتشار الخيور في الناس. So what he's saying here is that, I mean, you know, the tongue is critical. So he's saying that by our conversation, if they're based on sin and based on transgression, then this is going to spread evil within the earth. It's going to spread evil amongst people. If our conversation is based upon righteousness and good and God consciousness, then it's going to spread good in the world. Yeah. There is a وَيَنْشُرُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى الْخَيْرُ وَالْهُدَى عَلَى أَيْدِي أَقْوَامٍ يَتَنَاجَوْنَ بِالْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى طاعة الرسول ومن ينشر في واقع الناس الشرور والفساد بواسطة أقوام يتناجون بالإثم والعدوان ومعصية الرسول. This is a very clear distinction, yeah, that the people of good speech spread goodness in the air. They spread the prophetic message. The people of bad speech spread their message. ألم تر الذين نهوا عن النجوى ثم يعودون لما نهوا عنه ويتناجون بالإثم والعدوان ومعصية الرسول وإذا جاءوك حيوك بما لم يحيك به الله ويقولون في أنفسهم لولا يعذبنا الله بما نقول حسبهم جهنم يصلونها فبئس المصير. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا تناجيتم فلا تتناجوا بالإثم والعدوان ومعصية الرسول وتناجوا بالبر والتقوى واتقوا الله الذي إليه تحشرون. So he's emphasizing this point again. He's bringing ayahs. Then he says the hadith. لا خير في كثير من عفوا in the Quran again لا خير في كثير من نجواهم. Yeah, النجوى is التحادث فيما بينهم إلا من أمر بصدقة أو معروف أو إصلاح بين الناس ومن يفعل ذلك ابتغاء مرضات الله فسوف نؤتيه أجرا. So he's saying here that our internal conversation is not good unless it's what? Unless we're commanding to sadaqah, unless we're commanding to charity, unless we're commanding to ma'ruf, unless we're commanding to goodness, unless we're trying to bring hearts together, islah bayn al-nas. The one who does that, seeking God, seeking the pleasure of God, that person, he will be given a tremendous reward. Yeah, so the reason why do we speak? Yeah, what is the purpose of the tongue? Imam al-Haddad, this is how precise most scholars are. They'll tell you everything. They'll lay all out for you. So Imam al-Haddad says there's 6 reasons you should speak. There's no 7. There's just 6. I mean, how accurate, how much more guidance do we need? And from a perspective, this is worrying as well, because we've been given everything. If we're not following it, it's a problem too, isn't it? Because really it's been explained to us in exact detail. The ahadith are vast. They're vast. And then beyond the ahadith, we have scholars that have really interpreted and understood and extrapolated and explained the religion to us. So Imam al-Haddad says 6 reasons you should speak, no 7. Number 1, you move your tongue for the recitation of the Quran, to recite the word of Allah. Number 2, you move your tongue in order to remember God. Yeah, to remember God. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. etc. All of these other afkar, yeah, du'as, etc. So you move your tongue for the recitation of the Quran, or you move it for what? For dhikr of Allah. This is like now you're moving your tongue for your private, your vertical conversation with the divine. Why else should we move our tongue? Move our tongue to teach this glorious religion. Yeah, we move our tongue to give advice, nasiha, adil nasiha, to give sincere counsel to people, to aid people, to help them in their journey in life, whether that be worldly or the worldly benefit. We're just here to assist and give khair, to give goodness to people. Why else do we move our tongue? Move our tongue for da'wah, to call people to Islam, to bring people into the divine presence, to remove veils from their hearts such that they can attain success with the divine. And then the final reason he gives is if there's a need. So for example, you know, like you need, can you pass me this thing here, or I need this, I need that. Those kind of like, you know, just perfunctory kind of, you know, aspects within our existence, which is going to be a small part. That's it. Those are the 6 reasons. Quran, zikr, nasiha, yeah, giving good advice to people. Da'wah, calling people to Islam. Teaching, and then for the need. That's what he's saying. And that's obviously a very high standard. Maybe we can't arrive at that right now. Yeah, maybe we need to talk about it. Khalas, that's fine. Yeah, but inshallah, just to know that that is the standard that is expected of us. And it depends, again, if you're from the laity and we want to remain at that, but if we desire something higher, if we desire sanctification, this is what they say, there's 2 paths. There's a path of salvation, which is the path where you become saved. Yeah, you become saved and you enter into paradise. Then there's a higher path, a path of sanctification, the path where you purify this soul. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Yeah, he has succeeded, the one who purified. Yeah, that kind of path. When you're talking about that kind of path, then we're talking about these types of issues. We're talking about issues of controlling the tongue. We're talking about sidq. We're talking about turning our entire being unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, turning our entire being. And this can happen, and it's happened in the past and it happened again. And the beautiful thing, alhamdulillah, is that we have methodologies, we have schools, we have techniques that have been given down to us generation upon generation that allow us to realize what they call Tawheed al-Dhawqi. Yeah, that we're able to taste the oneness of God. Yeah, that we're able to attain Tawheed, yeah, believe, absolute certainty in Allah, in the oneness of Allah, experientially. This is the highest level. Tawheed, the highest level is actually experiential. It's not Tawheed where you understand and you've got the rational side. Tawheed al-Dhawqi, yeah, that we have the ability to do this. Assuming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed that potential within us, and we also have means, we have techniques, we have advice, we have knowledge that we can use in order to attain this. So ask Allah for tawfiq to allow us to ascend onto this journey, inshallah ta'ala. There's no better time to start than now. There's no better time to start than Rajab, yeah, the month of Allah, the month of turning back to Him, inshallah ta'ala. So we really hope that it becomes that. Inshallah ta'ala, tomorrow there isn't gonna be a lesson, and then inshallah ta'ala we'll continue on Saturday I think at a new time. I'm just gonna check. Yeah, I think on Saturday we're gonna continue at a new time of 6:15, inshallah ta'ala, because the times are kind of going back. So inshallah ta'ala we'll continue. We'll start at 6:15 till 6:45. Again, it will just be a half an hour dars. 6:15 till 6:45, inshallah ta'ala, from Saturday, inshallah ta'ala. Tomorrow is Jum'ah, inshallah ta'ala. So we don't have a lesson on Jum'ah, inshallah. We ask that you remember in your du'as on Jum'ah, the blessed night and also the blessed day of Jum'ah, inshallah ta'ala, that there's rectification for the ummah, and that the ummah becomes, once again, returns back to becoming beloved to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there's any questions, inshallah, we can take questions. People can type, or people can ask as well, inshallah. Islam, do you have a recommendation for a book on the lives of the companions? Arabic or English? In Arabic, there's a number of good. There's one by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani that's highly recommended. In terms of in English, I'll be honest, I haven't really come across anything. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm really come. There's one called The Last of the Companions by someone, Abdul Wahid, I think it is. That's okay. But inshallah ta'ala, these books, inshallah ta'ala, some of the people here can be inspired to write these books. This is what we have now. We're in a situation where, we need to write our own books, because there's gaps. There's definitely gaps there. And a good book on the companions. I mean, maybe if there's any of the anyone else wants to make a recommendation, marhaban. But I haven't personally come across anything. Like we mentioned, in terms of the seerah, you've got Martin Lings, which is outstanding. Really is an outstanding work, mashallah, in terms of the seerah. And obviously it mentions a lot of the different stories of the Sahaba within that compilation. In terms of the companions, Allah Ta'ala alam. I mean, there's things out there. There's like a lot of sort of lectures and things like that are out there. Our teacher Sheikh Ibrahim Osiefa, he's done a lecture on the four rightly guided caliphs. So if you put in the rightly guided caliphs, Sheikh Ibrahim Osiefa, then mashallah, you'll find, and he's done lectures on the four great companions, the four great caliphs. That's really good. Yeah, so there is access like that, but I'm not aware of any books. The Rasul was often light-hearted in his speech. Which of the six does this fall into? Okay, excellent, mashallah. So this falls into a number of them. Like basically, why the Prophet sallallahu, why was he light-hearted in his speech? This was to endear people. Like they mentioned, there's a man who comes to the Prophet sallallahu, and he starts to shake because of the awe of. Can you imagine being in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu? A man who was istighraq, completely and utterly mustaghraq. He was completely absorbed in his Lord. Yeah. So you come into the presence of someone like that. SubhanAllah. Then we enter into the presence of Habib Muhammad bin Hafiz, and you feel like you're gonna pass out. Literally, you feel like you're gonna pass out. It's so intense that you just sit, and then if you sat with him one-to-one, you feel like your heart's gonna burst. It's just unbelievably intense. And what then about sitting with the Rasul sallallahu? So now the Prophet sallallahu, what does he do? Yeah, he says to the man who starts to shake, he says, calm down. I'm not a king. He says, I'm from someone who my mother used to eat dried meat. Yeah, my mother used to eat dried. In other words, like my mother eat dried, which is like the food of the poor. I'm just a poor, simple person. Don't worry. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yeah, so that's why he would do that. And he was light-hearted in situations that required endearment. This would definitely fall under da'wah and bringing people closer into the religion. Because light-hearted is very important, actually, in terms of of course it is. If you want to call people to Islam, I remember one of our teachers, Sheikh Abdul Aziz Fredericks in Scotland, he said that he had a student of his who was giving da'wah to like a non-Muslim. And he said he brought him to his house. So he had guests and they're eating, talking and stuff. And then he gets a call. Sheikh Abdul Aziz gets a call, and he had to go and do like an urgent journey. He had to go and deliver a book to somebody, and he had to do it then. It was really important. So he says, okay, I'll do it, but I've got guests. So what can I do? So he says he asks his student, and the student says, yeah, of course I'll go, no problem, I'll go. You just stay, and speak with this. With my friend and stuff like that. So he speaks with him, and then he comes back. So his student, he goes out to deliver this book. His student comes back in about half an hour, back to Sheikh Abdul Aziz's house, and his friends become Muslim. He chose the Shahada. He's like, what? How did that in half an hour? So he's like, afterwards, Sheikh Abdul Aziz said, what happened? How did you become Muslim? Like, what did you talk about? And he said, we talked about Rangers and Celtic. So we just spent half an hour talking about Rangers and Celtic. And then he said, and kind of in between that, he's like, oh, you believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God. Yeah. Or, like, what do you think about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He was a great man. Yeah, he was definitely a prophet. And then so can you see what I mean? So of course, yeah, we use that, and obviously depending on the level and the audience and the people that we're talking to, it's amongst the most important weapons. Even though our general demeanor is of seriousness, no doubt. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in general, was seriousness, but of course he had amazing moments of light-heartedness as well. Yeah. There was another question here. When are the 3 middle days of this month of fasting? So today is the 13th. So 13th. So today, tomorrow, and the day after. Okay, so Sayyidina Salih has put on some books here. Imam Abdul Samad class translated the book of Imam Suyuti. Excellent. Okay, so history Kelis who took right. Okay, mashallah. The Stories in the Prophet's Orbit, book about the Sahaba in English, that also gives the female Sahabi their due right recognition. Fantastic, very good. Do you know where that can be purchased from the stores in the store on Amazon? DLR bookstore. Okay. Yeah, Jazakumullah khairan. Yeah, so there's books out there. There's books out there, inshallah ta'ala, that can definitely fulfill that. But my recommendation for everybody here, if you haven't already, is just to learn the Arabic language. It really isn't hard. It really isn't hard. If you want to learn Arabic language, just for the purpose of being able to read and understand, that's all. Because when you look at language, there's two parts to it. There's an active and a passive. The active part is speaking. The active part is writing, where you have to produce your own speech. The passive part is reading and understanding. That's what we really need, to be honest. Now, why do we need to be able to speak Arabic so I can order a chicken and chips from my Moroccan neighbor? You know, whereas being able to read a book, these books on the companions that have been written are like volumes. You'll get much more detail, much more detail than you will in an English translation. So really, if you approach it with that, within 6 to 9 months of dedication, you can learn the Arabic language. Yeah. So the way, how do you learn? So the faqih, the way the Arabic language, the way I actually took advice from our beloved teacher, Maulana Irshad, Hafidahullah, that he really, it's just from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I'm so glad I spoke to him just before my journey, because otherwise I would have wasted a lot of time. He basically said to me, just focus on trying to understand the language, and then speech will come. Yeah, speech will come, and it does come. Yeah, many of the like you've got Sheikh Afifi Aqiti, one of his great scholars. This is an example that Monasha gave me. He said that it's not like he learned how to formally speak Arabic, but he's a great scholar. Yeah. So what you then do is you take Arabic. All you're interested in is going from Arabic to English. Forget about English, Arabic. So you learn vocabulary. That's 90% of it, just vocabulary. You learn words that you can take. You can look at the Arabic and know what it means in English. That's it. You do that, and they say that to learn any language, if you learn 3,000 words, that's 90% of the language. 3,000 words is 90% of the language. So depending on the pace, obviously I was doing it full time. I was able to learn maybe about 80 words in a day because I was doing it full time. So I had time to be able to do that and then revise my words. So like that, you build it up, you build it up. It's not gonna take you long. Yeah, for the mathematicians amongst us, they'll tell you that it'll take you about 40 days to get to that 40 days. Maths isn't what it was. Yeah, 40 days, 2,200. Yeah, so you can learn the words out, and then alongside that, you have to learn the basic surf patterns. Yeah, you have to learn basic surf patterns to understand meanings. And once you have those tools, then you can very quickly get to a level where you can start to read and also understand the Arabic language. Once you have that, then the world really does open up for you. Yeah, and the amount of access that you have to books, the amount of access that you have to learning is just profound. You really do have massive access. So inshallah ta'ala, this is what will there be an opportunity for someone to raise a course in Arabic? MashaAllah. Great question. Inshallah, absolutely. Our intentions moving forward is to establish adult learning, like an adult madrasa. This is from what we've taken from the advice that we've given by Habib Muhammad, is to establish an adult madrasa, teaching the obligatory sciences and a little bit extra. Those were his exact words. He said, teach the farla and watawassa. And then also the Arabic language. Inshallah, the intention is to bring the faqih's my primary teacher of Arabic in Morocco, inshallah, to bring him over. He's a real master of the language. To have access to somebody like that, inshallah ta'ala, who can then deliver it at a higher level. But inshallah, the faqih can certainly start. Would you recommend Urdu learning too, as many of us know this language and may opens up to more books in a shorter time? Yeah, I mean, it would. I mean, it's great. Urdu is a beautiful language, but I mean, Persian, if you really want to learn language, I would learn Persian before Urdu, to be perfectly frank, because Persian is going to have a lot more books. Turkish is also a very, very profound language. So there's languages out there, but really, I mean, to put anything ahead of Arabic doesn't make any sense. I mean, really, Arabic is the focus. And again, like, mashallah, if I was 15, mashallah, to be 15 again, yeah, fair enough, then I would learn Urdu. But right now, do we have time to learn 2 languages? Most people don't have time to learn Arabic. This is why we stuck with how to learn Arabic. Yeah, so if you only have limited time, people are working, they have family, they have da'wah commitments, they focus on their spirituality, their personal development. etc., etc., then you're only going to have limited amount of time. That limited amount of time, dedicate all of that to the Arabic language. You know, more so. And then, mashallah, if you have more time and you really, some people really take to languages, then learn 4 or 5 languages. Learn Urdu, learn Persian. Like Sheikh Abdul Murad, he knows Persian and Turkish. Yeah, mashallah. So no doubt is useful. Yeah, I'm sure he knows Urdu as well. I mean, Dr. Umar, they say he knows like, you know, between 70 to 100 languages from what one of our teachers mentioned about him. So there's people who are great with language, but if you're just going to focus on you know, just trying to be able to understand the religion well, then of course we look to Arabic. We look for, inshallah, for openings in Arabic to be able to move forward with the religion. Because if you look at the Sahaba, what did the Sahaba have? They had Arabic and they had prophetic character. Those were the 2 vehicles that they used to ascend. They had Arabic and they had prophetic character traits. Yeah, they had this, which come through the Futuha sports, as we mentioned before. They had these great, and through those two elements, they ascended. Yeah, beyond even like what we can even comprehend or imagine. But those were their tools. Arabic language is the key to all of knowledge and character. Yeah, they weren't like there were only 7, this mentioned, there were only 7 that would give fatwa. The 160,000 Sahaba, the vast majority of them were scholars. Yeah, if you look at scholarship, it came 2 generations later. They said the Tabi'een, they were known for their scholarship. The Tabi'een, the followers who came after them, were known for worship. They were great worshippers. But if you look at the Sahaba, what they known for character. Yeah, that's what they were known for. These tremendous character traits. That's what transformed them and transformed the entire world at the time, and the entire universe, to be honest. Yeah, the reorientation of the entire cosmos came about through that. Yeah, so these are the truths. Arabic is part of that. Afwan, we've gone on way too long, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, inshallah. Inshallah, we see people on Saturday, inshallah. And then also tonight we have the Mawlid, of course. We have the Mawlid at 7:30, inshallah ta'ala, where we'll also be joined by Mawlana Ishad. He'll be doing a dars on the Shama'il, on the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well, inshallah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala sayyidina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.